Well, today's definitely a suntan lotion day, so I've covered up, made sure that I'm protected, and well, I'm hoping to be out in this weather for a good part of today, so that's really important. Right, well, I've got a delivery today of horse manure. I'm going to do something slightly different with some of it. I'm going to put it into the bottom of my potato pots, and I'm doing that because, well, the price of fertilizer is going through the roof, and well, why not use some of that at the base of each of these? So that's what I'm going to do. I'll set them out and get them, well, I reckon about 4 or 5 inches of manure in each of these, and then just let it settle over the next few days, because potato planting is certainly coming up fast. They've chitted really well, my shallots, and well, I'm looking forward to getting them in. So have a bit of a clear up here, set these out, and then as I move the horse manure down to the compost heaps, I'll, well, just put a little bit in. Okay, let's go. Okay, so I need to keep pots for my tomatoes. That's just about what I use on one side of the polytunnel, and I'll have space in the corner for another couple. So 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I remember saying I would use about 15, but we'll see. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, 16 tubs will be for shallot potatoes, and if I don't use all of those, then I can recover 1 or 2 for the extra I need in the polytunnel. So yeah, I think that's ready for filling with a little bit of that horse manure as I unload. The cover's off, ready for me to bring the compost down, which I won't film because you've seen many times. But it's very interesting to see all this fungal growth in here. It's all good. I'll just get these, oh, it's really warm in there. I'll get these just leveled a bit, and then I'll be able to put compost straight on top. And that one, I'll be wheeling the wheelbarrow straight up and on top. So that's all good. I've been putting my strawberries that I'm going to put into baskets together. That's what's left from the winter. Those baskets didn't winter over well, and the reason was drainage. So they got wet and then the roots got completely waterlogged, whereas that one's got a few puncture holes in it, and you can see how it survived and thrived. So lesson learned. I think next year I'm going to do the same again. I'll keep strawberries wintered over in baskets, but I'll make sure that before I get them over to their resting area for the winter, I'll make sure that they've got some drainage so that they don't get waterlogged. But I use plenty of other containers to store my strawberries, so this will be enough without any shadow of a doubt to set up the baskets that I want this year. So before I get underway with the compost, I'm just going to show you a few things I've been doing. I've pulled out all this membrane because this is pieces that I've had left over from when I did the major project of covering the fruit garden. And these are going to be enough, I'm pleased to say, to cover my new raspberry bed. So I've got them out just to make sure I know what I've got. There's at least 2 layers there, and I thought I'd spread them out and just let them warm up the soil underneath whilst I was waiting to do that job. And I had a bit of a panic last night. I came over to shut up the polytunnel, and I thought, actually, those gooseberries in this warm weather, I think they're in danger from the dreaded sawfly. I don't know when the sawfly comes out, but I figure it makes perfect sense that it comes out when the plants start to get into leaf. So these are some Enviro mesh nets that I had, and whilst I pulled out all that black membrane, I got these out too, and I've just draped them over the bushes. It's not very sightly, but I think it'll be effective, and it'll make sure that if I'm going to go to the effort of making a cage and covering these gooseberries, then I won't lose this season because I've just been a bit slow. At least this way they'll be covered up. I do normally video everything I do on the plot, but as I say, I was a bit of a panic last night. Right, here it is. I'll cut back to you when it's empty. I know, I've not finished, but I thought I'd show you this. The anatomy of a compost heap made from horse manure. So on the top here you can see the last, well, drop that I made, and it's still got big pieces of manure in it, lots of sawdust, and we've got quite a lot of bedding that still needs to rot down. But down here you get to a sort of second layer where it's starting to rot down, and then right at the bottom already, if I pull that out, you can see it's full of worms, and that is already not far from usable. And when you think that that will go on for a year, those worms just work their way up gradually throughout the months and really ends up with a fantastic pile of compost ready for the garden. And why did I do that? Well, because I wanted a straight edge. So I'm going to put this trellis back in there with a nice straight edge, because Mrs. K mentioned how it was leaning out this morning. I don't want to disappoint Mrs. K. Well, there we go. I think I'm done on horses what name today. And well, that's a huge pile of manure that's building there. And I've topped these off. It's gone pretty well, I have to say. Very pleased. And I just need to cover that back up now. And then the day can really start. Plenty to do today. I forgot. You might be wondering why there's no manure in any of these pots as I'd intended. Well, the truth of the matter is, it occurred to me whilst I was moving all this that there's too much weed seed in here that would be going in the bottom of the potato pots, and just not worth the risk, I don't think. And we'll have to find an alternative way of giving those potatoes as much goodness as I can. Right, well, on to the exciting stuff. So I got a bit of a plan, and that is to use some of these iron bars that I've been digging out of the ground over time, and to put those into the membrane. I'm not sure how far down they're going to go, so I don't want to end up with pieces of iron sticking out the top of this construction, so it's a bit of guesswork. But in an ideal world, I'm going to have a number of these upward bars spaced out along this membrane, and then I'm going to bash them down in and then drill holes straight down into these round poles, and they will go over the bars, giving the whole structure some rigidity. And as I'm doing that, I've got to work out how to cope with the slope, and well, that's about as far as I can plan, really. A lot of it is about doing it and seeing how it goes. So I need to clear out. I haven't got quite as much room here now. I've netted the gooseberries, but I want to get all those little pegs out the side, because these bars, when they've gone in with this on top, are going to, well, make those pegs redundant, and I can use them somewhere else. So I need to get a good overlap, and it's probably going to be about there. So what I am going to do is put in a line of string so that I get things perfectly straight. It's very easy when you're doing this sort of work to think that you got things straight and then find you haven't. So let's do the first steps and see how I get on. This bit is quite difficult because I just don't know how far I can beat these down. I don't want them down too far because I'm going to lay the logs on top of it. I need to have them proud and then I'll be able to beat them in a bit further. So I think these are probably the best length and the best type of pole that I've got. I think that one might work out, but I think I'm going to go and find, I've got a few more of these screwed to the old beds which are collapsing, so I think I'm going to unscrew those and then see if I can put those in reasonably spaced. Right, that's next. So I think I've got everything straight and I've marked across directly in front of each one of these bars, and these are my secret weapon really. A set of drills of varying diameters for wood, and I'm just going to make sure that for each one I've got the right diameter. That looks pretty good. Number 16, which is a bit short for that one, so I think I'm going to need a 19 for those and a 16 for these thinner ones. So I'm going to try this one piece first before I go on to the smaller section. I've got to cut that to make it work, and I'll drill these holes and see if we can get one set in place, see how it looks. Right, fingers crossed. Well, even in time lapse, I'm sure that went on far too long, so I'm not going to show you me drilling hundreds of holes, but that went in quite well. It's not the sharpest blade I've ever used, but I think that'll work. So I'll knock these others out and then show you when I get to putting them on top of the bars. Well, this really is a moment of truth. I'm just going to take the scraggy bits off the back of these holes, give it the best chance of working. And the little one at the end, and then it's offer it on top of these poles and see whether that plan I had is any use at all. Right, here we go. I guess I'm going to go over each one at the same time. I'm going to take this out, so I don't want it to bend the poles as it goes over. It's looking okay so far. I've got to get down quite a way on these. There we go. This one's a bit of a pain. Give it a bit of a tap, I think. I'm quite comfortable with this being quite a strong fit. I don't know whether it's pushing it down or actually coming through. It looks like it's pushing it down, which is not going to be particularly helpful. I think I'm going to keep going. There we go. I think we're there. First one in. and that feels strong, so I'm pleased with that. I might just tap it a little bit. Of course, if you don't get those holes perfectly lined up, then it does cause a bit of cross friction, which actually isn't a bad thing. That one's gone in nicely. Okay, I think it's time for dinner. I'll come back, do some more drilling. I probably won't show you that because it's quite boring, but I'll let you see as I progress. Right, sustenance. Well, having lunch was a really good idea because two things occurred to me. One was, it's taken me weeks to dig this, so don't rush this bit. It's tempting to fly through it and try and get it all done in one hit, but it's going to take as long as it takes. The other thing, that bit of a stop and think moment, maybe consider quite what I'm doing in terms of laying these out. I'll show you what I mean. So it would have been quite easy just to repeat what I've done there and cut this pole and repeat what I've done here. But it occurred to me that the greatest strength on a piece of wood, of course, comes from overlapping. So it makes perfect sense for this next one to go across this joint and have a small piece the other end, and then carry on that way with small pieces and long pieces alternating to get the best possible strength. The other thing that occurred to me was at the end it would be really nice to have a crossover so that one piece is on top of the other and then the other piece on top of the other, rather than butted up against the edge that I'm going to create. So yeah, that spell away to have lunch, very valuable indeed. Right, if I'm going to do that, I need to make sure that these poles are in the right place, and I think they are, because I think when I put a long beam on and overlap it, I'll go down on these three, and then the next one up there will be over 2 poles. I think it's going to work out just fine. Right, I've got lots of drilling to do and some cutting. I won't bore you. So I've got to deal with the slope here, and I've cut this piece to the correct length, but I just need the offcut to sit underneath it. So I think I'm going to put it over this upright pole and anchor it in to the edge of the bank, and that'll hold it in place. And that'll just make up some of the gap under this one beam because I've got that slope away. So I'm going to drill a hole in this one, chop a little bit out to anchor it, and see if it all works out. Well, I think that went in fine. I might have to create a bit of a wedge in here, but I'm happy with that, because one thing I am going to do is staple this to the edge so that nothing can fall through the gaps, and also I'll put membrane down here and staple it, and that will create the membrane across the bed, and that will obviously anchor everything and make sure no soil works its way through. So I think that's working out well. So the next one, I've got to allow for the width of a pole just here so that I get that nice overlap look. So my holes are going to be in slightly different positions, but that's fine. Right. So I'm going to use the width of a pole to determine how it will overlap, and that way I can make sure that my holes in this pole are in the right place to allow for that. Right, marking and more holes. Well, 3 batteries not enough. This wood is really very tough indeed, which is a good thing, but it means that I've done 1, 2.5 holes in this next piece of wood. So it's just gonna have to wait because there's no choice. I need to recharge my batteries, but it's going well. I'm pleased with what I've done so far, and I think I'm gonna put these bits of wood away safely so that they're out of sight, and we'll carry on with this again another day. Well, that's me done for today. I do hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you did, then why not get my uploads on a Wednesday and a Sunday at 8 p.m. If you'd like those uploads, click on the bell and the top, and why not like and subscribe as well. Diolch yn fawr.